Good evening, everyone. It's Tuesday, September 6, 2022, and I want to welcome you to tonight's Columbus, Wisconsin City Council meeting. City Clerk Pat Gable will now take the roll. Albright? Here. Arnold? Here. Gray?
Present.
Motive? Present. Reed? Here. Roki? Present. Steiner?
Here.
Okay, everyone's here, and if you are able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight's meeting has been noticed in accordance with state statutes and local ordinances. And now I'm looking for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Alder Motif will make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Alder Roki will second.
So it has been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda for tonight. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Correspondence and communications, I don't believe anyone has signed up to speak. Is that correct? Okay. So now I'm looking for a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
Alder Gray moves to approve the consent agenda.
Alder Steiner will second.
So it's been moved and seconded that we approve tonight's consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Moving on to new business. The first item on the agenda under new business for tonight is to consider and take action on the one-year contract extension with Columbia County Solid Waste. And this was something that we discussed and decided to bring back to council to determine whether or not we want to do the one-year extension. There was some confusion, I think, about the contract. And so at this point, I think what we are asking you to vote on is to approve a one-year contract extension with Columbia County Solid Waste. So if there's no questions about this, then I'm looking for a motion.
Alder Albright can make a motion to approve the one-year extension with Columbia County Solid Waste.
Alder Roki will second.
So it has been moved and seconded that we approve the one-year contract extension with Columbia County Solid Waste. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to a roll call on this item. Gray?
Aye.
Motive?
Aye.
Reed?
Aye.
Roki?
Aye.
Steiner?
Aye.
Albright?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, great. Now we're going to move on to item number 2, which is to consider and take action on Resolution 16-22, a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of $2,650,000 in the Sewage System Revenue Bonds, Series 2022A, of the City of Columbus, Columbia, and Dodge Counties, Wisconsin, and providing for the payment of the bonds and other details with respect to the bonds. And we do have, is it Greg Johnson? Yes. Thank you. We have Greg Johnson here with us tonight to give us some information.
Great, good evening. So there were 2 sale day reports that I left at your place. So the first one is related to the sewer revenue bonds. So I'll speak to that one first. So there's an executive summary after the cover page that summarizes the results of the bond sale this morning. There were a total of 4 bids submitted on the bonds. The winning bid was submitted by Bankers Bank out of Madison with a final true interest cost of 4.0388%. The total principal and interest over the 20-year life of these bonds is $3,899,211, which is $230,107 less than the estimate that we had presented to the Common Council previously. There's some financial analysis that's attached to the executive summary. First is the bid tabulation, which just includes the results from all 4 bidders that submitted bids on the bonds this morning. And then the tables that follow include the particulars related to the projects and the debt service for these bonds. So in Table 1 is the list of the projects that are funded by this bond issue. So primarily consists of 2022 and 2023 projects being undertaken by the sewer utility, Highway 89 improvements, some other sewer improvements related to to street work, and then some lift station and clarifier deck improvements. So the total amount is $2,270,000. Table 2 includes the sources and uses that include the final issuance expenses based on the sale results today. The amount that was authorized for issuance was $2,650,000 based on the final sale results today. We're able to downsize the bond issue, still get the exact same amount for projects, but less transactional expenses. So the final amount is $2,585,000, and a final copy of the resolution we provided as well, so that the par amount of that issue is $65,000 less than what was authorized. And then the final debt service schedule for the bonds, that's shown in Table 3. As I mentioned, it's a 20-year life of this bond issue. The total principal and interest, $230,107 less than what we estimated. So in summary, good results, a good number of bidders. Interest rates came in better than we expected, and transactional costs came in less. So overall, good financial results for the city. So I'm happy to answer a question on the sewer revenue bonds.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions?
Oh, hi. Of course, I didn't write down what section it was in. It looks like the city does have the option to prepay early.
Correct. So there's a call feature on the bond issue. So all bonds, securities that are sold in the bond market typically have a call feature. So these bonds are callable on May 1st of 2033. So that gives you an opportunity to make prepayments, to refinance to a lower interest rate if market conditions are favorable, or a combination of both. So for a 20-year bond issue, that's a pretty standard call feature. So you will have an opportunity to make prepayments in the future.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions? Well, thank you very much, and we do need to change the amount then in the motion that we make to $2,585,000, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So the amount on your agenda is not correct. And so I am looking for a motion.
Alder Gray moves to approve Resolution 16-22, a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of $2,585,000 sewerage system revenue bonds.
Alder Motive will second.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve Resolution 1622 as read. Is there any further discussion? We will take a roll call on this also.
Gray.
Aye.
Motive.
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Rolke.
Aye.
Steiner.
Aye.
Albright.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. And now we're moving on to item number 3, which is to consider and take action on resolution number 17-22, a resolution awarding the sale of $1,370,000 in, whoops, and that one is different also.
That one will also go down.
Okay. $1,350,000, general obligation corporate purpose bonds, series 2022B. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
So there's a second sale day report that covers this bond issue. This is a general obligation corporate purpose bond, finance various street improvement projects, some equipment acquisition for the fire department, and some storm sewer projects. There were also 4 bids received on these bonds as well. The sale was conducted this morning for this issue as well. The total true interest cost came in at 3.8118%. The total net principal and interest over the life of these bonds was $1,974,787. So the total net principal and interest for these bonds came in $120,335 less than the estimate we presented last month. So better interest rates for this issue as well. Similar information is attached to the sale day report. First is the bid tabulation, which includes all 4 bids that were received. The winning bid was submitted by BOK Financial Securities out of Milwaukee. We've also attached the project list of what was funded through this bond issue. So you'll see it was the street portion of the Highway 89 improvements, some 2023 street projects, and then equipment for the fire department. So about $1.3 million of project costs being financed. Table 2 includes the final sources and uses, so similar to the sewer revenue bonds, the transactional costs came in less, so we're able to downsize the issue, get the same amount for projects, just have to issue less bonds to pay for it, which is always a good outcome. So the total bond issue is $1,350,000, which is $20,000 less than we had estimated. Table 3 includes the final amortization schedule for the bonds. We break down the bond issue by purpose because under state law, when you issue bonds for multiple types of projects, in this case, street projects, fire and fire projects and stormwater projects, they're all funded with one bond issue, but you have to spend what you borrowed for each type of project on those types of projects under state law. So we allocate the debt service between each purpose. There was what was called a premium bid submitted, which means that the winning underwriter is giving the city some extra money up front on closing. You use some of that to pay interest expense in the first year. So we show that offsetting your interest payments. So again, the total principal and interest over the life of the bonds is a little over $120,000 less than what we'd estimated. Table 4 includes the tax impact analysis of these bonds, including your existing debt. So in the far left-hand column, we show your existing levy for debt service. And then under proposed debt, we show the net principal and interest and how your levy is projected to change. The debt service levy will increase by about $50,000 from 2022 to 2023. So comparable to what we were estimating in our pre-sale report. And then finally, since these are general obligation bonds of the city, they count towards the city's statutory debt limit, and that is summarized on Table 5. The maximum amount of principal you can have outstanding just of general obligation debt is 5% of the city's total equalized value. So at the end of this fiscal year, that's about $27.8 million. The city will have outstanding about $9.2 million. So you have about $18.6 million of borrowing capacity remaining. You're only at about 33% of your debt limit. So you're at a very comfortable margin for debt utilization. The final information that's in the sale day report is the credit opinion from Moody's Investors Service. As the city has done in the past for its general obligation debt, a rating was obtained by Moody's. The city's existing A1 rating was affirmed. Both Kyle and Brandon did a very good job on the rating call, kind of giving the financial overview and economic update on what's going on in the city. Encourage you to look at the credit opinion as you have time. It's kind of a nice third-party assessment of the city's overall financial condition. Kind of your credit strengths. The city's been rated A1 for a long time. A lot of the city's longstanding financial strengths were noted in this report as well, namely the city's strong fund balance and good budgeting practices. So there were no real surprises in the credit report. That's a good thing. They see things have continued to remain stable within the city. So the action item is the resolution that's on the agenda, and then there's a bid form that staff and the mayor can sign this evening that just also evidence your approval of the sales if that's your pleasure. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions on the GO bonds.
So is it A1 rating the best that you can get?
It goes AAA, AA1, AA2, AA3, and then you're in the A1 category.
Oh.
So for a city the size of Columbus, I think that's a good rating. I think, size is one of the factors they take into consideration. So, they'll kind of outline that in their methodology in the report. So A1 is a strong rating. I mean, certainly it's worth, you have a cost to obtain a rating, but certainly at that level, you're seeing benefit of that rating.
Thank you. Anybody, no? Okay.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. So if nobody has any questions, I am looking for a motion, and just a reminder again, the amount on your agenda is incorrect. It should be $1,350,000.
Alder Rolke will move to approve Resolution 1722, a resolution awarding the sale of $1,350,000 general obligation corporate purpose bonds.
Alder Motive will second.
So it has been moved and seconded that we approve Resolution 1722 as indicated. Is there any discussion? And we'll do a roll call on this also.
Motive? Aye. Reed?
Aye.
Rolke?
Aye.
Steiner?
Aye.
Albright?
Aye.
Gray?
Aye.
Motion carries.
So now we are down to item number 4 on the agenda, and thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. That was very enlightening. And item number 4 is to consider and take action on claims in the amount of $534,889.93. So I am looking for a motion.
Alder Motive will make a motion to approve the claims in the amount of $534,889.93.
Reed will second.
So it has been moved and seconded to approve the claims in the amount specified. Is there any discussion? And we will do a roll call on this also.
All right, I'll fill in for Pat for a second here.
Okay.
All right, that one there. All right, Reed,
Aye.
Rolke,
Aye.
Steiner,
Aye.
Albright,
Aye.
Gray,
Aye.
Motive.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Great. So now we are down to the report of city officers, and City Administrator Kyle Ellison will go first.
All right, thank you. Just a few items. Highway 89 was listed last week as substantially complete, and so they are going to be working on some final punch list items that are remaining, but pretty soon everything will be wrapped up, and it'll just be our nice new street to enjoy until hopefully the potholes don't start in the next 5 to 10 years, but enjoy it while it's there because it's a really nice looking street right now. Fuller Street CDBG project is also going to be starting next week, and there's going to be some parking restrictions in the area of Fuller Street, South Dickinson Boulevard, and School Street. The details are going to be on our website. They have some maps and some timelines. Fuller Street will also be closed when needed during the underground pipe replacement. Just as a reminder, this project was actually delayed. We wanted it to be done earlier. We wanted to award the bids in May, but unfortunately with the bids coming in double what we expected, we had to reject those and kind of redo the bidding methodology. And so we did complete that process in June, and then we're able to award the bids at the first meeting in July. So we're about a month and a half later than we intended, and so now it's going to conflict with school traffic, but it's a kind of an unusual bidding environment, and it just kind of got behind just based on the odd bids that we received. Most of you have probably seen that you have the audit reports. The auditors are planning to present their audit results at the next meeting. So if you have any questions on the audit or anything that you wanted a little more information on, just pass it on to myself or Brandon, and we'll go back to the audit team and we can get that information ahead of time to make sure that we have what you need. And finally, another reminder that school started, so watch your speed, watch for pedestrians, be mindful of all of that. And another reminder that if you can help out as even a part-time or a occasional crossing guard, we still really need that help. So if you think you could help us in that way, just call the police department and get some more details by talking with the chief or Erica. That's all I have.
Okay, great. I want to thank everybody who volunteered to make this year's Farmers Market in Columbus a success, and also thank all the shoppers. It is over now, and I know there's been some disappointment that they weren't able to continue on into the fall this year. I would like to remind anybody who enjoys our Farmers Market that this is strictly volunteer. There are no paid positions, and they're always looking for people to help out. I contacted Carrie Livingston, who is one of the directors this year, and she said if you want to help, and so that maybe next year they can continue on into September and October, she would be delighted. So I also have a couple of things from some of the department heads. Kim Lang, the director of the Columbus Senior Center, wants to remind us that the fall issue of the Columbus Commotion is now available. Different businesses around town, as well as City Hall, Library, the Senior Center, and the Recreation Department. And she wanted me to highlight pedal days, and that's like a pedal on a bike, not on a flower. And those are happening Monday through Friday, September 12th through the 23rd. And, you know, I have never participated in this, and it sounds like a lot of fun. Apparently, what you do is they're going to have photos of something at each of these different locations around town, the school district, the city hall, the library, senior center, lots of different places in Columbus. And the Columbus FFA chapter is going to have QR codes, and if you don't know what those are, ask your granddaughter, because I had to ask my daughter, at each stop for the pedal days. So you scan the code, and then you learn about agriculture and safety tips, and you answer a question, and then you might win a prize. And and every time you do that, your name is going to be entered in for, I guess, another prize too. So that sounds pretty exciting. That's pedal days. And if you need a helmet, by the way, if you want to ride your bike or take your skateboard, or just, you know, walk and you want a helmet, the Recreation Department has some free helmets. And if you this is courtesy of the Kiwanis Club, so I want to make sure that we thank the Kiwanis Club for that. So contact the Rec Department between September 12th and the 23rd, and you can receive a free helmet. Amy Jo Myers from the Rec Department wanted to let us know, sadly, the pool is closed, and she wanted to send out a big thank you to everybody on her staff who helped make it a very successful season. And she personally wanted to thank Kane, who is her assistant, for the time and effort he's put into the pool. He's not only a great motivator, but he's also a really hard worker, and really very fortunate to have him as a pool employee. She wanted to thank her summer rec staff for stepping out of their comfort zones to allow kids to be kids by playing outdoors, teaching tennis lessons, and providing a safe atmosphere for them to learn and grow. And we have so many good things going on in Columbus through the rec department, so we're really lucky to have them. Also a reminder that the registration for girls basketball grades 4 through 8 is open until September 21st, and you can enroll online at MyRec, MYREC. The library is having some programs that sound very interesting. For the adults, there's going to be a live virtual event on September 22nd with author Jim Henderson to discuss his book, 3 Practices for Crossing the Difference Divide. There's also going to be a hybrid evening book club featuring the book The Sum of Us by Heather McGee on Wednesday, September 28th. And again, you can get all the specifics if you contact the library, look at their website. For families, this sounds like a lot of fun for little kids. Miss Helen is going to have a teddy bear picnic on the front lawn of the library Saturday, September 24th at 10 a.m., and they're going to provide lemonade and a snack. And I wanted to remind people that the Oddfellows are having their Oddtoberfest the last Saturday in September. So they don't do it in October, and that's great, because September is a wonderful time to have their Oddtoberfest. And there will be a craft show with local artists, and I think they usually have a polka band and probably a lot of beer, I'm guessing, and dancing and food food, and that's always a lot of fun too. So that, I think, is it for me, except I would really strongly suggest if you have some time on your hands and you want to have fun and make a little money, become a crossing guard. They really need them. My husband he's a substitute, and he's already gotten a call about working next week, so they really do need them. And that is it for my report for tonight. And so now I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Alder Motive will make a motion to adjourn.
Alder Steiner will second.
So it's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nobody is opposed. We're adjourned.
Good evening, everyone. I have 6:59. Today is Tuesday, September 6th. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Columbus Common Council Committee of the Whole. And with that, if City Clerk Pat Gable could take a roll call.
Albright?
Here.
Arnold? Here. Gray?
Present?
Motive? Present. Reed?
Here.
Rolke?
Present.
Steiner?
Here. Thank you. And our meeting was properly noticed. So next up on the agenda, if there is no discussion or alterations, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
Alder Rolke will move to approve tonight's agenda.
Oh, go ahead.
I'll second.
I have a motion from Alder Rolke and a second from Mayor Arnold. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. Next up is citizens' comments. I understand we do not have anyone signed up. Was there anyone that wanted to speak that didn't have a chance to sign up? Seeing none. Moving right along. Item number 5 is the committee and commission minutes. In your package, you will see the minutes from the cable, the CHLPC, the CUC, which is the Columbus Utility Commission. the CWL, the recreation, and tourism. Anyone have any questions, comments, concerns about any of those? Perfect, moving right along again. Tonight is going well. All right. Item number 6 is to review the task order 2022-10, the Folsom Street project. You will find some information about that in your packets. This is something that was identified for next year's street project. Did you want to give us any information on that, Kyle, or?
Sure. So last July, utility staff and City Hall staff and DPW staff met and looked at the street ratings, looked at utility conditions, and the amount of money we anticipated having available. And Folsom Street came up as a project that would fit within a lot of the parameters we were looking at, and it ties right into the Highway 89 project that's just completing now. And that would run it to the east over to Waterloo Street. So this task order would do several things, but it basically is going to be the design and everything needed to move the project forward. In the event the city council does not want this project to go forward, now would be a time if they want us to go back to the drawing board that we could have those discussions, but this did fit the criteria we were looking at, especially the funding size we have available.
Thank you, Kyle. I mean, in my opinion, it makes sense to move forward with Folsom Street. It's something that we can do in the budget, and it's a logical next step in our street works. Was there, Trina?
Oh, thank you. I have no problem with the choice of Folsom. I was just so surprised to see a street being put forward, whereas typically it would be a long listing of streets with their various attributes and issues, and then a long council debate. So I was like, oh, wow. Well, this one does make sense.
So we are moving towards getting a street plan also that will get us more of a forward-looking process so that it's more of a plan and the staff can work on the plan and then have the council adopt it on a kind of rolling basis, kind of like the capital equipment plan.
Right, and I think that'll be super beneficial once we get that really working. And it's my understanding that there wasn't really anything else that really fit into our budget, and logically for the next step, Folsom is just the one that we can do, if that makes sense. Alder Motive?
I just want to confirm this was coordinated between all of the departments.
Yes, this was actually at your request last year, utility staff and City Hall staff, and I think it was Jerry's first or second week on the job. We got together and used a lot of the data we had from Jason Letha, and kind of went back and forth and identified this. And so now is the time where we just need to get the engineering started so that we're ready to go and do the project next year.
Thank you. And, I mean, I appreciate it. Like Alder Reed mentioned, it's not exactly how we did things in the past. I think it just makes more sense because none of us up here have all of the information. So it makes more sense for staff that does and knows the various things to present us with something, and then we can decide whether that's what we want to do or not. With that, is there anyone that had any other questions or concerns? Is everyone comfortable moving forward with redoing Folsom? Okay, perfect. See lots of nodding heads. So let's move on to item number 7. And that is to review task order 2022-11 for Cardinal Drive. I suppose I'll let you kick this one off right away, Kyle.
Yeah, this is a rather unusual one. This is a long-standing issue that we've been looking at. There's essentially a temporary cul-de-sac that was installed by the developer with the intent that they would further develop to the east. That was before, I believe, the flood maps all changed and made most of that area in the floodplain. Not saying that you couldn't build, but it does make it more challenging. So at this point, it doesn't appear anything's going to be happening in the near future. So the developer should have fixed this when they did that extension that never happened. So now it's still there, but the developer's now gone. So the city is being asked to kind of make it more of a straight stretch like you see in a lot of places throughout the community. The difference being that this shouldn't be the city's cost, this should have been paid for by the developer. And so most likely, if we go down this route, special assessments would be something that would be relied on to help fund this type of project. There are only a few homes that it benefits, but there's also, I think, some complicating factors on where exactly the property lines are, because if the county lines on the GIS are correct, then the cul-de-sac was built incorrectly because it's off-center, and the plans show it being centered. But the county GIS is known to be off in some regards at times, so part of this is going to be just getting a good handle on exactly where everything is, including property boundaries. And the task order in front of you also includes the special assessment report that would be required to identify the improvements needed and allocate cost by some sort of method that the engineer determines to be fair to the benefited properties. That being said, this isn't something that's mandatory to go forward with, but it is something that is hanging out there and at some point will need to be addressed.
Kyle, can you remind me again what the problem is for the homeowner?
There's several problems. One of the most, I guess, safety-related issues is that based on the drainage, he gets an ice rink at the bottom of his driveway. The other issue is that when you look at the cul-de-sac and the property lines, which are sort of hard to see, if those are truly the property lines, the cul-de-sac actually takes up a good chunk of his front yard. And we do treat that area differently. For example, in winter, they do get to park there where other people can't because that is actually on their property as far as we can tell. But it is going to change the angle of their driveway and significantly improve the drainage as well as give them more front yard.
Thank you.
So we're looking at an estimated cost of around a little over $22,000 in design fees, but only around $3,000 in construction fees. Is that correct? I'm a little confused by how low the construction fees.
So I think this is for the engineers, so I believe that would be construction management, Jason?
Oh, okay, so that's just the management, more of the design and management portion. So we're looking at about $25,000 to $26,000 aside from actually accomplishing it.
And it's anticipated that this would exceed, because you're not just dealing with the one side of the cul-de-sac, it's the full fix, that this would exceed $25,000, so it would require full public construction bidding.
Right. My honest biggest concern is this affects so few homes. We're going to spend a minimum of $25,000 before we even get to how we're going to pay for and what the actual project's going to cost. And then most likely, most of that's just going to go back to the residents anyway in special assessment fees. But we're going to end up putting the $25,000, maybe we assess that to them as well in the end. But what if we spend $25,000, the handful of people that it affects is like, well, we don't want a $12,000 special assessment to fix this issue, so now we don't want to move forward with it. Council decides we don't move forward with it, and now we just have a bill of $25,000. I see a couple lights on. I'm not sure who was first.
I can go. So Kyle, it's page 4 is kind of the breakout that we're looking at. Okay, so I know we got an email from the homeowner. So have you discussed with them if they want to pay a special assessment to have this taken care of?
I did discuss with the one property owner that initiated contact, and they would like to see the project go forward. At this point, we're not really able to tell them what the cost would be for a couple reasons. We haven't identify the probable cost of the construction, but more importantly, without the special assessment report, I don't know if they're going to divide it equally by 4. I don't know if they're going to divide it by every house along that street that drains past there, or some combination thereof. So I can't even say what share each property owner would get, but when I did talk to them, they wanted to see this move forward because they've been dealing with this for quite a while, and they'd like a resolution for this temporary cul-de-sac that's been there for about 20 years.
So do we reach out to the residents in that area to send a letter and say, we're proposing this work? Is this something that you want to know about? Is this something that would be a public meeting might be beneficial for? I don't want to spend the money if they don't care, but I think we need to hear from everybody that's going to be special assessed.
My big concern is it's a handful of people, and like these assessments per person are going to be tens of thousands of dollars. We're not talking about a small assessment. Like this one person wants it done. Do their neighbors want to spend tens of thousands of dollars for this to get done? And I highly doubt that's the case. Alder Reed.
Oh, thank you. I'm looking at this, and unfortunately, I really would not like to see the city go forward with this for the minimum of $25,000, and we know it can't possibly be that. I think we'd be lucky if it costs double once the construction is put in. Honestly, for one property, it's not the property owner's fault, it's not the city's fault, but then we don't have the offending party to go after. I just really can't see the city taking up the tab for one property owner.
Thank you, Alder Reed. Did anyone else have a thought, or Mayor Arnold?
Well, so it sounds like the big concern is that the drainage causes a very slippery driveway or, outside their home. Would there be other solutions to that issue that might not be so expensive?
I think there are. We started with this as the primary solution to remove something that's identified as temporary, which indicates it's not to be there forever, but it doesn't put an expiration date on it either. So I think if we were not interested in the full fix, I'll call it, I think we could go back to the drawing board and see if there's intermediate things we could do. I think, again, depending on where the property lines actually are, I think the one homeowner that's the most impacted probably still wants to see this done, but it might be something that we come up with a more direct solution working right with the homeowner. But there are multiple properties that would be affected, and we would need permission to be on some of those other properties. So if this isn't the preferred solution, we'll go back to the drawing board and bring back other solutions.
Thank you.
It sounds like a lot of this is basically on private property. It's not city property. Is there any reason that the homeowner couldn't just decide he doesn't want a cul-de-sac in his front yard, bust it up and turn his front yard into a front yard? With that, like, it's his property? Do we need city action for him to do that?
That'd probably be a question for Paul, but the issue is that you could end up with half a cul-de-sac then, and if we're incorrect on the property lines by relying on the county site, they would actually then be ripping up something that is in the public right-of-way.
Well, I understand that. Before they do anything, they would have to make sure where their property lines are. That's part of getting a permit to do anything, and they would definitely need a permit to do something of this nature. What I'm saying is they could research where their property lines are. If that cul-de-sac is truly in their yard, then they can move forward with something. They could coordinate it with their neighbors, the 4 of them. It would be a lot less expensive than special assessments of the city going through all this, because they're not going to have $25,000 in initial cost of design. They're not going to have the expense, and in the long run, they are going to be the 4 people paying for it anyway. If they really want it done, it makes more sense for these 4 people to just get it done. Like, it would save them half. Like, it'd probably be 50% of the cost, as if the city does it and then assesses them. If they want it done, they should just do it. with coordination of the city. You know, of course, they should find their property lines, they should do everything, they should get appropriate permits, but it's going to save a lot of money on everyone. Alder Reed.
Oh, thank you. And I would like for the city to offer assistance in planning a drainage pattern for them, something that might be fairly simple, only really touch the one property. It just seems like there would be something much cheaper and easier for getting the water and ice out of the way for their safety.
Go ahead, Alder Steiner.
I actually talked to the gentleman when he sent out the email to everybody. It went down there and saw what was going on. He's explaining, there's that next thing about the cul-de-sac and how all the water drains, like, essentially down to the corner of his driveway, and then there's also a culvert underneath it that drains out into the yard and then back into his yard. It's unfortunate that his whole property is built like this. He bought it that way, and you know, there's a whole bunch of other implications on that, but I think he just needs an answer as to what it is. He doesn't understand exactly what the city can and can't do, or what should and shouldn't do. I think if we can offer him a solution that might be, you know, hey, this is what it's going to cost for the city to do it, you might have a better chance doing this yourself. You probably would go with that easier chance as opposed to taking a $25,000, $30,000 assessment on whatever it is. But just a final answer to anything is what he's looking for, I would imagine. Because the other properties that are on there next to him is an empty lot. And the other side, that's a small corner of his backyard. So there's not much there for everyone else to want to take on that assessment. It's just that one guy at the end of the lane that wants something done.
Right, and that makes sense. And echoing what Alder Reed was saying, I think if the city, I think we should be, you know, we should be helpful and, you know, help them figure out different things. I just don't think it's logical for the city to take on all of the planning and all of the cost and then reassess the people when there's sounds like a singular person that it truly benefits and really wants it. Like, it's a lot of money. So I think it's more of something the property owners should be taking on. It's not our property. It's like, I mean, I don't like being hands off, but I think in this situation we should be. Just offer assistance where needed. Anyone else? Any thoughts or? So what is the will of the council? Do we want to move forward with this task order for the Cardinal Drive cul-de-sac or no? No. All right. Is that good enough direction for now? All right. Then next up on the agenda is to review Class B alcohol license application for Cardinal Lanes in Columbus. Let's see here. I believe I got a couple things out of order. All right, so pretty straightforward. For those of you who didn't know, the bowling alley is reopening, so that's super exciting. This is just a new Class B liquor license and fermented malt beverage license application. Very straightforward. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Is everyone comfortable moving this forward to the next regular meeting? Yes. Okay, perfect. Moving right along is to review the CHLPC Rest Haven restrooms. Don't see, oh, Amy Jo, did you want to talk to us a little bit about it?
Sure. Yeah.
Hello, good evening. I'm here this evening on behalf of the CHLPC Rest Haven subcommittee that I'm part of. And we met a couple weeks ago, and the group would like to request of council, as it's stated in the packet there, that once the renovations are complete, that the bathrooms can remain locked, similar to that of the pavilion, that they're only open during a private rental or a city event. If council is against that decision, then that will determine how CHLPC will purchase their fixtures. They'll go with more of the vandal proof, like the stainless steels if it's open year round. Otherwise, they'll go with the basic porcelain items and ceramic flooring and stuff like that.
Thank you, Amy Jo. Alder Reed?
Oh, I was just wondering, would that leave any restrooms on the property available?
Yep, there's the brick buildings directly behind the rest haven. Then there's 6 women's stalls and then the men's restrooms as well. So there would be park bathrooms from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. that are open.
Thank you. Just wanted to make sure
Yep.
there were going to be facilities somewhere on the property.
There will be.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Alder Reed. Go ahead, Alder Motive.
With that said, I think that we should go in and keep it locked so that we can make it nicer for those who are renting the facilities.
Okay.
Right, yeah, and I mean, this has to do with it being, nicer and things, but also cost, like
It'd be big cost savings.
Yeah, exactly.
Tremendous.
It's going to cost a lot more to make these something that are secure and super durable to be open all of the time. So that's a
Reduce
big
the
portion,
vandalism
too.
as well.
Yeah.
And it'll actually save on DPW staff time because they go every day, every morning to clean the bathrooms and prepare them for the seasonal. So that'll save on cost to the city as well.
Oh, thank you. I didn't even think about that, but that's
Yep.
a very valid point. Yeah. So what does the council think? Are you okay with moving forward with the more traditional fixtures and things that would, at a cost savings, but having the restrooms locked other than during rentals? Seen lots of nodding heads, so awesome.
Wonderful.
Thank you. So
Thank
we'll
you.
move forward
I
with
will let them know.
that. And then, let's see, the next one is also for the HLPC. This is for the window treatments in the pavilion.
Correct. I'm here as well, representing for the CHLPC tonight. They would like to donate roller shades on the 18 windows that are facing the street side of the pavilion. With the addition of the 12 windows that they've added, a lot of light has been added to the pavilion, which is a great thing, but it's a little bit too bright when you're having a rental in there. That light just kind of sits directly right on the guests that are seated there. So they'd like to provide shades. It's not a blackout shade. It still allows 5% of light to come through. And HLPC said that they would purchase 1 to 2 additional roller shades in case one was damaged, then DPW could immediately replace that for the next rental. And then once those were depleted, they would buy some more. So they would work
And they
with
are
the city on that.
they're very minimal looking, like I don't think they would detract at
They're
all from.
very elegant and very
Yeah,
simple.
yeah.
They didn't go anything real, Kadash or anything, but they're nice. They complement the windows very well.
And we also have to consider that it's not air conditioned, so things of that nature, keeping some of the sunlight out does help. It also helps preserve the building. All of that sunlight does damage
hardwood
things.
floors.
Yeah. Go ahead, Alder Reed.
Oh, I am having mixed feelings on the idea for providing the shades. I would love to make the space just a little bit cooler and not have blinding sunlight for the renters. Yet at the same time, it also feels like having the windows more open seems more, just a little bit safer, that people on the street can see what's going on in the building.
So I'm going to share my personal opinion, if you don't mind. As a person who does the rentals, I can say that when we have certain events and they have the lights going, like the disco balls, it is very troublesome to the renters, to the residents across the street, because that light is going in there until midnight. I've seen that. It just gives actually a little bit more privacy for the people that are renting the pavilion and more privacy for the renters. I think there's a lot of benefits to it. When I'm touring the pavilion at night, often it's between 5 and 7 at night for the most part, a lot of times during the day, and then they see that light, how it comes into the building, and that somewhat is a distraction. They do ask if we have shades. So, and as far as safety concerns, the poles are actually enclosed inside, so it's just a minimal amount of showing. So there shouldn't be any safety. Is that what you mean as far as?
No, I was more thinking of just having more eyes on what's going on in the facility.
Okay. I personally love the idea. It's an expense that HLPC is willing to pick up and make a donation to the city, that the city doesn't have funds to do those types of things right now. I think it's a great opportunity, but it's the will of the council.
Thank you, Amy Jo. I think that's, oh, go ahead.
Amy Jo, I agree with you 100%. I mean, we've all been to weddings or events with, you know, the strobe lights and the disco balls and all that stuff, and it is a lot, and I'm sure that it does bother residents. The other thing I'm thinking is if the shades are used, perhaps it may keep it a little cooler in there, and we can have the windows shut, which may help with some of the
Exactly.
noise issues we've been having. So I think this is wonderful.
Thank
Baby
you, Alder
steps.
Motive. Alder Albright?
I think the shade idea is perfect because I agree. The light, I think the lights, when you walk down there and there's something going on and the lights are going like that, it's a little distracting, and I can see where it could be inconvenient for the neighbors in the area.
Thank you, Alder Albright. And like Amy Jo mentioned, this is going to be paid for by the CHLPC. This is not an expense to the city. So what does everyone think? Would you like to move forward with the donation of the roller blinds from the CHLPC? Yes. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Amy Jo.
Thank you.
Let's see here. Next up is item number 11. This is the to review the resolution for the Columbia County Library tax exemption. This is just a basic housekeeping item. Since we have our own library, we are exempt from paying the tax for the county library is what this is. Did anyone have any questions or comments? We just do this. We do this. This is just a common thing that we do every year.
We have to do it every 6 months.
Every year, once a year, yeah.
All right.
I know, time flies, right? So I assume everyone is comfortable moving forward with that. Then item number 12 is the exact same, but for Dodge County, since we are technically in Dodge as well. Everyone is comfortable. All right, perfect. Then next up is item number 13, and this is broken out. So in your packet, you're going to see a lot of blank forms for proposals for different services for the city. So basically, we are looking for the go-ahead to move forward with these, with this format for the proposals, so that we can start accomplishing all of these things. Were there any questions or comments or any alterations that Alder Albright?
I do have a couple questions. My questions are on the process though. So when I was going through the proposals, I don't really see, so you post this and then people bid on it and then you review them. Do you have any kind of review system where you would, like if it's a City of Columbus vendor, they would get more points versus somebody that's coming out of Cottage Grove?
Well, the council will review them.
Yeah, we don't have evaluation criteria specifically. On some of them, they have criteria about response times and things like that. We basically have to follow what we have in our purchasing policy in these requests for proposals for the service agreements, but the council can give some kind of deference to locality potentially.
Okay, all right, that was my only question.
Yeah, once they come in, we'll review them like all other things. Anybody else have any questions? Anything you see you want changed? I know, like Kyle mentioned, some of the big things were like response times were things that we had problems with in the past for getting multiple bids and contractors willing to, because I think some of them said like, God goodness, some of them were like within an hour or some like extremely short time period. So that's been changed if you look through them. But other than that, any... Okay, perfect. If everyone's comfortable moving those service agreements forward to the next regular meeting for approval. Oh, go ahead, Kyle.
So what we would plan to do is we would publish these.
Right.
And then get the responses. And then once we had the bids back, the next time you would see this is with the bids all submitted and ready for approval, basically.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Is everyone okay with these being published and submitted? Yep. All right, perfect. Then next up is item number 14 to review the beautification committee draft ordinance. Looks like Paula Steiner is no longer with us. So I was not, She is with us. She is no longer present in the room. I suppose that was not the best choice of words. Sorry about that. So the city had a beautification committee back in the mid-90s until it was dissolved in 2004. During the August 1st, 2022 Committee of the Whole meeting, the alders expressed an interest in reestablishing it. There was a desire to incorporate a variety of perspective into the group, including businesses, representatives, citizens, civic groups, elected officials, public staff even. And there was an emphasis that it would not just be limited to the downtown, but that they would put their efforts throughout the community. So with that being said, everyone has in your packet the revised version of the ordinance. Is there questions, comments, or concerns to start with? Go ahead, Alder Steiner.
I just want to say, my wife is alive, and she read this. She actually does think that this is actually really good.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. That's really the main thing that I was looking for. I wanted to know what her input was, so I appreciate that very much. Anyone, any concerns, or is everyone comfortable with what this is looking like in our packets? Mayor Arnold?
Did we have an amount that we were going to put aside for the advisory board to have access to?
There was a talk of like $1,500. I think that's best handled in the budget versus
not in the
putting it in the ordinance.
Okay,
'Cause
gotcha.
You'd have, anytime you wanted that to move up or down, you'd have to change the ordinance.
Okay.
Does that make sense to everyone then? Okay. Any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Alder Reed.
I am really liking the changes from last time. Good job. Under duties, let's see, there's design installation of outdoor furniture and furnishings, Christmas lights. Should it be holiday lights to be more general and could be multi-seasonal?
And that's a fair point. That'd be a good thing to be reworded before we adopt it. I agree. Maybe even not just holiday, maybe seasonal lights, if that makes sense. Because then they could be, you know, like, it can be fun to have lights without there being a holiday. Like,
How about holiday and seasonal?
that works.
Is that too wordy for you?
Yeah. Any other questions or comments, alterations? Seeing none, is everyone okay moving this forward to the next regular meeting? All right, perfect. Awesome, I am excited for that. And thank you, the current Paula Steiner, for bringing this forward. So next up is item number 15, to review the CDL reimbursement agreement. If you want to give us a little backstory on that, Kyle.
Sure. So recently, earlier this year, the federal rules, I believe, regarding the CDL training required and how you go about getting a license, they changed. Unfortunately, it didn't make it easier to actually get people licensed, and it didn't make it cheaper either. So what we're faced with now is we have to send people to basically certified or qualified training centers, whereas in the past you would bring people in, get them their temporary license, train them on the equipment that you actually use, get them a road test with a certified tester, and you'd be good to go. Well, now it requires much more extensive training at one of these centers. It takes several weeks usually, and the cost is in the thousands of dollars. I think initially we were planning $8,000 to $12,000 for the training. We've been able to find it locally a little cheaper for now. But the issue is that when they come out of this training, they've got their full Class A CDL, and that means they can drive a semi. And you can go anywhere and drive a semi and get a $10,000 or greater bonus. So the issue we're having is when we are trying to hire people that don't have a CDL, we're paying them as an employee to go to class, and we're paying for the class, and then they could leave and get a bonus off of the money that we've invested in their training that makes them more valuable. The wages are something that we owe them no matter what, but this agreement would have a kind of a clawback provision over the next 5 years from when they get their license. That would say, after 5 years, you owe us nothing. But if you leave in the day after you get your CDL, you owe us 100% of the cost of the training, tuition, things like that. Not the wages, but the training itself. So this is something that we feel will encourage people to make a longer-term commitment to the city, but also if we have people that leave and take this bonus, the money that we recoup can then be put back into training the next staff person that may not have a CDL.
Right. And to be clear, the amount that they would owe would go down over time and eventually be at zero at the 5-year mark as far as this is proposing. Go ahead, Aldermotive.
My question is how did we come up with the 5 years? Is that the standard amount of time?
It was something that our legal staff came up with. I think it's a nice way to divide the numbers out. It could be 25% over 4 years. We could pick a different number. I think the goal is to get to that balancing point where you've got enough service out of the employee that makes the training that you've invested in them kind of balance out. Because again, not just the tuition, it's their hourly wage for 3 weeks.
I guess what I'm wondering, our employees, this is a great potential retention carrot for employees, but are our employees at this point staying this long or close to?
I think it's individualized. People stay and leave for a variety of reasons. I think just the Public Policy Forum just issued a report that for the first time ever, the highest amount of people are leaving government service in general throughout the Wisconsin retirement system at the highest rate that they've seen. So minus the bump after Act 10. So I think that's hard to really put a specific, that if we do this, this will be the outcome. I don't think it's that straight line.
Right. And this is more to help us recoup cost than to, it's not really a retention tool.
My thinking was if our employees never stay that long, it might deter them. So if we have an average of 3 years instead of the 5, this may deter them to sign on with us. So I was trying to figure out if that balanced.
Makes sense. That'd be something just to double check before we finalize it, but in my mind, the 5 years makes sense with the amount of money that we're talking about, but I think Aldermotive has a point. If that is not a typical retention amount of time for this type of employee, then maybe we should look at a different timeline and maybe have, if there is a difference, if it would make sense to have a difference, maybe have both available for the next meeting, if that's not too much.
I just wanted to say that I agree with Sarah. I was wondering if the 5 years was too much. And then I wanted to find out, when you said that our legal staff, is that the labor attorney that set this up, or?
No, this is our regular attorney staff. We didn't go for the labor attorney. This is something that we did just with our routine attorney.
Okay.
Sorry, Paul. He's still with us.
All right. Yeah, I would like us to look at the years too.
Thank you, Alder Albright. Alder Reed?
Oh, thank you. Yes, I was also debating on the 5 years. It just seems like quite a long time that might, spook some potential employees off of it. For a comparison, I'm trying to think if the police department has a 2-year contract where if we have paid for their training, if we have paid for the training, then they wouldn't have to pay it back if they had stayed at least 2 years.
I know that we have I think it's a 2-year agreement. Dennis, do you remember, is that for the new equipment that we purchase?
It's situational. If we put someone through the academy and they leave us, we don't have an obligation for the academy fees, which is $5,000 to the state. If they graduate the academy, then the state pays for that. We do not pay for that. We pay their wages, but if they leave within 2 years, for any reason, they pay back $2,000. That doesn't touch the physical, the site, the drug test, the equipment. The bulletproof vest alone is $950. So it doesn't get us very far, but it's something to make them understand that, we're trying to keep you. We want you to give us 2 years at least to try us on, and hopefully you'll stay.
Thank you, Chief. And so, I think that's definitely a big difference is the monetary amount, 2,000 over 2 years versus this is a significantly larger amount of money for us to recoup the cost of spending that on them. Go ahead, Alder Steiner.
I think 5 years is actually pretty reasonable. If you shorten it up, you're going to have a large opportunity for turnover really quickly, because you can stay at a job for 2 years, you have your CDL, and then still get a job trucking, which is going to be demand for a long time. And you're just constantly training more people, whereas a 5-year retention is actually going to encourage people who are signing up to actually stay longer, as opposed to having to constantly retrain new people every couple of years. I think it makes sense, because even if you leave after 2 years, you can take your bonus from a CDL and still pay off whatever it is that you have easily.
Then some, yeah.
So holding that on for a little bit longer can actually make it retain a little bit better and longer for that.
Thank you, Alder Steiner. Mayor Arnold?
We had a kind of a similar situation when I worked, when I was on the school board. We had a special program, this is like 10 years ago, that was a wonderful program, and but it was expensive, and a few of the teachers took advantage of it, and one of them, got the certification and was hired away by Wanakee, within a matter of months. And so the district then put into place, and I am quite sure it was 5 years because it was quite an investment. So I agree with Alder Steiner. I think 5 years is pretty reasonable.
Thank you, Mayor Arnold. Yeah, and from everything that I see, and I'm thinking 5 years sounds reasonable. I do very much understand Alder Motif and Alder Albright's concerns. So I don't think it hurts to just look at it. And if there is a big discrepancy, maybe look at a couple options next time around. But otherwise, I think 5 years probably is reasonable for the amount of investment. Anybody else? Any thoughts, or is everyone comfortable moving forward to the next regular meeting, and Kyle and his staff will do a little bit of research to, all right, perfect. Let's see here. Item number 16 is to review the accounting system. So I will let Kyle field this one.
All right.
You'd be excited.
So this is something that we've been looking at actually since I started. There's been kind of an undercurrent of knowing that this is something that we needed to address at some point. Being involved in these, they're very expensive propositions typically, and the full price of $38,300 is sort of what I was expecting, and why it hasn't come to the forefront, easier or earlier. For right now, Civic System is offering a really large discount of $28,000, so we can actually upgrade to the newest system. And this is going to be the system that our water, light, and wastewater utilities are already transitioned to. And we can do that for $9,575. And they can do that over the next couple months. And there's also a feature that in our annual maintenance, we can pay $900 for several years and get the upgrades for life, which will make sure that we always have the latest version of this, the software and the financial management software that we need. We have the money in the current budget. We have some unspent money in the City Hall capital equipment and capital expenses accounts. So we can actually fund this with current year budget money and potentially be up on the system before the end of the year. It's a huge discount, a huge savings, and again, it would put us on the same platform as the utilities, which I think opens up a lot of potential for cooperation and cross-training. So we'd just like permission, if it seems like a good idea, permission to move forward.
Thank you, Kyle. Yeah, and to me, this is a no-brainer, especially since, a lot of the restructuring was to try and make things more streamlined and economical. This makes complete sense, especially at the cost. We have talked about this in the past. but the cost was prohibitive, especially fitting it into the current budget cycle at this price. It just doesn't make any sense to do anything but to move forward with it in my mind. Any other, Alder Albright.
So I would like to suggest that we do the extra $900 so that we do have software for life. I do have a quick question about the software though. So it's Civic Systems. Is that the standard software that city to city, that other cities use it? Because the reason I'm asking is because we're trying to get a new treasurer, and I'm wondering if the new software is going to be a good thing, or if a lot of people are still using the old software.
Fewer and fewer people all the time are using the older, the current software that we use. I can't remember, I think, Pat, we've talked about this. There's just a handful of communities that are still on this older software. There's a wide variety of options, I guess. There's, several of the big programs. This is probably one that a lot of other communities are using. So if they're familiar with it, that's great. But even if they aren't familiar with Civic, the functionalities are going to match a lot of the different functionalities that the different programs have because they all try to do the same thing, maybe in a slightly different way. But even the early feedback we've gotten from utilities is that they're really positively seeing the report creating ability and how they can manipulate information to present what they want. And so in the past, that was a much longer process where you had to have someone build something for you and download it. So this is something that I think isn't going to hurt us in recruitment.
Right.
If I remember right, your old software is not being supported any longer either, correct?
Marginally supported. I mean, they're not officially pulling the plug, but they're not devoting resources to it.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Alder Albright. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Is everyone comfortable moving forward? Okay, perfect. Then the next up is to convene to closed session per 19.851C to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. I will take a motion to convene.
Alder Motive will make a motion to move to convene session, to convene to close session per 19.851C.
Do I have a motion?
Reed will second.
All right, I have a motion from Alder Motive and a second from Alder Reed to move to closed session. If City Clerk Pat Gable could take a roll call.
Arnold?
Yes.
Gray?
Aye.
Motive? Aye. Reed?
Aye.
Rolke?
Aye.
Steiner?
Aye.
Albright?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Awesome. All right, we will be convening to closed session. We will not be coming back on air tonight. So thank you for everyone for attending and have a great night.
Thank you.